Welcome back to the absolute most professional StarCraft 2 with the greatest player of all time, the Zerg in the red, the finisher. It's Serral, facing off against a much more relatable Terran in the blue. The People's Terran from Team Liquid, we have Cure. In a best of 7, Terran versus Zerg showdown. And whether you're rooting for the best of us, or maybe the best of the rest of us, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button and maybe even subscribe. Help me kind of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what do we have? 1,701 likes on this video and this cast, and I'll cast another one, and I'll probably do it anyways because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the first Reaper pokes in, gonna work on the Zerglings, and right now the SCV trying to block Serral's third, but Serral not easily deterred. He snuck a drone out off to the side. I'm not sure if Cure has spotted it. Obviously, Serral is aware of the SCV down there between the drone and the Overlord spotting for it. Just staying right next to the extractor in case he needs to pop in, but it looks like the drone will have a relatively direct shot to take a third base before the 3-minute mark. But you might be like, well, that's a pretty large economy early on. And rude. Sorry. A pretty large economy early on. 3 bases. Unfortunately for Serral, Cure is a Terran, and that means he's going to get away with 3 command centers on the other side of the map. Now, you could go for some sort of crazy all-in. I say crazy because between the Reapers and the Hellions and the sort of indirect scouting you can get as Terran, it's almost impossible to pull off any sort of all-in that they can't already counter. Yes, you're putting a lot of investment in those 3 command centers. Yes, you're kind of lacking in units that deal directly with, say, Roaches or even Lingbane. But by the time an attack can come together, it's almost certain that Cure will either have a Banshee, bunkers, or something in between to deal with it. And a huge commitment by Serral early on will severely limit his potential economy later. And if you're a player who thrives on longer games where more decisions are made and increases your opportunity to make the right ones, so Serral, you're probably not going to want to try to end it early in some sort of a gamble. Doesn't strike me as much of a gambler myself. Well, maybe poker or something along those lines. Like, there's an inordinate amount of Brood War pros who became professional poker pros, but I digress. Now, the Overlord going to try to cut down on the lack of knowledge here early on. Already Cure trying to pull one over on Serral. He started Interference Matrix, and he's building a Liberator. So he's doing everything he can to convince Serral that this, indeed, is a Cloak Banshee, besides letting the Overlord into Scout. So, but Serral just backs off. The Overlord... Nope. Seen, not heard. The Overlord gonna go right back to the Pervert Pillar and hang out there for a while, creeping out everyone, figuratively and maybe eventually literally, nearby, trying to keep tabs on whatever's coming out. Serral did not forget Spore 20, making sure he's got his early Spore Crawlers. The Liberator actually could get some damage done. Serral obviously didn't have vision of the starport. And I don't believe he sees this Liberator. He does now. Can maneuver the Spore Crawler into position immediately as it moves its way past. And the Liberator just going to go fly all the way over the beautiful water features and try to have more Zerg tiers added to them. The Queens will politely yet firmly drive the Hellions back. The Liberator sieges up and outflanked by the Spore Crawler, and Cure not microing it away. Serral takes it down with relative ease, losing exactly 0 drones, which is not very many. Not an ideal start. The Liberator is a much less costly choice. You don't actually have to invest in the tech lab. You just did it for show. You don't have to get Cloak. Now, of course, with Banshees, you don't always have to get Cloak either, but it's kind of like having no butter with your potatoes. Or biscuit, I guess. Well, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Infestation Pit already on the way. That was more like it. Almost entirely done. Serral could be starting a hive before 7 minutes. Almost, like, physically the fastest hive you could get while still doing anything else. This is obscenely quick. Uncomfortably fast. Very early. And other ways of describing such things, but 6 minutes and 20 seconds in the game. Serral already has a hive on the way. And so far, Cure has made no real attempt at putting pressure on. But of course, it's not like he's been lackadaisical back at home. He has plenty of production, plenty of racks 4 and 5 coming online now. And the major weakness of Zerg, well, one, besides the map layout, I feel like I do this every time, but it's still worth doing. Past those first 4 bases, it's almost impossible to expand forward as Zerg. Every single base you try to take is towards the Terran opponent. And while Zergs may value social distancing, Terrans have been known to be skeptical of such things, let's say. So the closer you get to the potential siege tank pushes and open yourself up for medevacs or just direct marine attacks, the harder it is to defend, especially if you're relying on your economy and waves of production to come out ahead. A Zergling manages to get in. A 4th command center's on the way for Cure, but he's taking the highway to Hatch in the top right corner. And the Hellbats are coming online. The army supply is about even, but the upgrades are favoring Cure. He's able to get him significantly quicker than Serral. And since Terran and Zerg upgrades take exactly the same amount of time, you can kind of count on that trend to continue. At least until an Overseer gets in position and potentially delays them. But it's going to be the Octo racks now on the way. Cure not all in, but instead just ramping up his production to that late game level so he can not only get to 200 supply, but stay there, even when he's continually fighting. But Serral already has the fixins on the way. 2 Vipers, Adrenal Glands, Baneling Speed. Cure trying to assert himself on the map, but Serral just making sure he doesn't get anywhere close. This has been about as close as we get to no rush. 8 minutes and counting. It can't last forever, but this is these players acting closer to a big game hunters match than outright 1v1. But the somewhat non-aggression pact will end now, as Serral's base is under attack. The Banelings have to be careful on both sides with them. Zergling counterattack, looking to cut off the reinforcements, but Cure has nothing coming across. The first Viper going to be gunned down by a brave set of Marines. A valuable pickoff, but even more valuable are all the SCVs at the 3rd. Cure going to lose a dozen right off the bat. The Viper will be rebuilt. There must always be 2. All right, a master and an apprentice. Any more Vipers and it's just a crowd. It also takes up a significant amount of supply. I've never seen anyone as stringent on their unit count and unit composition as Serral, but I guess there's a reason he's considered to be, and I quote, pretty good by most players. But Cure again, using the speed zones, just movement speed increase, but for Zerg especially, that can be very meaningful. The siege tanks on the low ground, but the Vipers ready to blindside him in every sense of the word. Blinding Clouds, I think, on the front line. And he's forced to pick up. Serral just runs the table, flips it, and crushes Cure beneath it. He's able to evacuate with a few of the units, and again, he just steps up to the high ground and knocks out another hatchery because of the inconvenient placement next to that cliff there. But Cure already replacing his units. Another bio ball is rolling forward. Gonna take out the hatchery on the left flank. And there's no easy anti-air right now. He's limited to just the Vipers. But Hydralisks are joining the production tower. Again, Serral's army in position. The drop is pushed back. The Spore Crawlers, not enough to zone out in the main base. Serral again, Parasitic Bomb. Cure needs to find an antidote or a quarantine so far. And softening up many of those, trying to minimize the splash damage. But so far, Cure, he's able to knock out the hatcheries. But we're only 10 minutes into the match, which means the main base is still mining and the natural hasn't dried up at all yet. So Serral is still able to support replenishing his economy. And what are the trades looking like? About even. Serral losing a little bit more. Cure now has a 4th base on the way, though. And that means he's a little bit better off when it comes to replacing his army as well. Notably, no Ghost Academy at all. No ghosts on the field. Now, Serral hasn't really prompted it. Only a couple of Vipers, no Lurkers, no Ultralists. Okay, there's no targets of such value that ghosts are really required. And the Bio Ball with Marines, the Medevacs, the Mines, and, of course, the Marauders is still more than capable of dealing with this Lair Tech army. Another cancel. He bops another hatchery, but the Lurker Den is on the way. Infestors, a drop, just ripped apart to shreds, I say. Oh, no, okay, Jimmy, edit that out. That... Just stop. Serral on defense across the board, but holding strongly. A very flexible defense, just keeping enough units back at home until he can ideally build up to the lurkers. But Cure still has 135 army supplies, maxed out with money in the bank. It's been quite a brawl, but not nearly enough to slow down the economy. And now a drop in the base as DJ Cure is going to snipe off the Hydralisk Den. You need those for lurkers. He has enough on the field. Going to replace it immediately. 8 drones dead alongside it, and without splash damage, the Bio Ball actually starting to get some real damage done. Another attack on the right flank. Where are the Vipers? The Widow Mines will connect across the board, softening up mostly the Zerg. Parasitic bombs into the corner. The full attack was cleaned up, but yet again, another hatchery will be brought down. 2 of them so far. I guess he popped a lot of hatcheries that weren't quite finished yet, and those don't show up in the units lost tab. What's Serral? Well, starting to feel the pinch just a little bit. He's now lost a couple thousand more resources. Meanwhile, a fusion core is on the way for Cure, skipping the ghosts and going straight to potentially ranged liberators, as well as medevacs with Caduceus Reactor for double the energy regen. Lurker range, though. Serral needs to start prioritizing defense. Far be it from me to dispense advice, but you can't keep losing hatcheries with no counterattack forever. Cure doing a great job of keeping the pressure on, even if he isn't able to press forward into those first 4 bases. Another hatch down. But oh, whoa, the Nidus in the... I didn't even hear the scream, and apparently Cure didn't either. As the Nidus in the main, the Overseer waiting for its moment, the production getting gutted. There's a Venn diagram of freedom, but he didn't have the Liberators, and a second Nidus screams its way into existence like so many of us did. The first one, so stealthy, though, knocks down one of the... He actually brings just 3 Ravagers, pops them right back into the Nidus, the tactical Ravagers. Still, he pops out some more. Oh, what a play. Didn't quite have enough to knock down the Liberator, and this has gone from a remarkably effective to a costly tactic for Serral. Cure will clean it up, but Rome is burning right now, as the main base is under fire in the most literal sense. The Nidus is still there, by the way. That conduit to the Zerg base. You can't just leave that lying around. That is a liability at best. Meanwhile, the Nidus network itself is potentially vulnerable, but it's still... Well, Cure just keeping the drops going. Rolling with it for now. The Nidus will be taken out. A few changelings in the corner. Nidus on the left. Far out of the sensor tower range, but another planetary fortress has been established near that. Let's call it the 7 o'clock position. Right now, Serral actually really feeling a lot of pressure from Cure on the other side and looking to relieve some with the lurkers slicing through the planetary. Caduceus Reactor is actually the first choice for upgrades out of the fusion core. Pops right back in. A bit rude to leave without saying bye, but don't let the Liberators hit you on the way out. Another Nidus to the south. The natural. This one will be taken out, but... Well, Cure has a counterattack. The Nidus network will be disconnected. The Lurkers have reestablished on the left side, but Cure doing a great job on defense and offense so far. Gonna take down a bunch of the tech. A massive Widowmon hit. Throw it out more. Wombo combo. Parasitic bomb. And the Fungal holding it down, and a single medevac will escape. Cure getting cleaned up on the other side while Serral is boxed out by the Liberators over to the left. Another Nidus will be rebuilt. Only if both ends of the Nidus are taken out does it get deleted outright. Even if you rebuild the network, you do not get those units back. They're stuck underground forever. That's horrifying. I think I saw a movie like that once. But Serral's still struggling. He has 69 drones, just upped the count a bit, but that's not a very nice economy for a Zerg that even sucking the life out of one of his hatcheries down the center. Cure, still a glaring lack of ghosts, but 5 Liberators at a time. He splits, he stims. The Marauder take it out first. A bit optimistic taking out these Lurkers, but, you know, a few Marines and Marauders for Lurkers is not a bad trade at all. The mass Liberator is also going to be very tough to deal with. And the fact that Cure has a 5th base online, that's usually the sticking point. The pre-scan, he spots the Serral Fester lurking beneath. so many Liberators. Another Widow Mine from downtown, but Serral starting to struggle. The banks are dead even. He spots another Infestor and pops it underground. Another Nidus Worm right down the center. He's covering the Nidus with the Lurkers themselves. Serral now has the gold base over to the 3 o'clock. The Liberators will siege up. Parasitic Bomb could be devastating. It doesn't stack, but it's doing damage to the vast majority of the Liberators down the center. Another Nidus. Liberators also can't hit buildings. Maybe next patch. But Serral, he needs another Parasitic Bomb. The Corrosive Vials rack up a double kill. The Lurkers right on the edge of things. Does he not? He has advanced ballistics now. Full energy Viper out in front. Yanks in a couple. I guess that's better than Parasitic Bomb because there's no flying away from that. A couple Marines over to the left side, still pressuring that forward base. But Serral is mining from the gold now. He's slowly but surely carving back the income. But Cure has made him work so hard for it. 6 Liberators at a time. 0 ghosts. He's chosen his strategy, and Serral does not have a Spire. He does not have Corruptors. He has no way to knock down the Liberators easily. But he's been picking them apart. Look at the geometry here, as the Marauders simply do not care. There's still another Lurker out of the first scan. Yes, sure, the radius of scans may be wider than your mother's, but it still didn't spot all the Lurkers. Meanwhile, Lings and Banes on the left flank gonna try to... The Lurkers did not succeed, but the Banelings might. More Marines taken down. Is that another Hydra Den on the way? Okay. Did he mean to build something else, like a Spire? That's the 3rd Hydra Den of the game, but just bashes through almost exactly the right amount of Banelings to bowl over the Planetary Fortress. But, Cure far from being struck out right now. Still no ghosts, but the Liberator count rises dramatically. He's going to have 16 of them? An obscene number. Like, is there Neural Parasite? There is not. The Lurkers down the center. The Olympic Rings of Freedom. We'll force the Lurkers away from now. For now. Serral. Finally a Spire on the way. I think he misclicked a Hydra Den instead of a Spire. Does Serral use grid keys? No, I needed my backup decoy Hydra Den. I believe that's what happened, though. And that means dealing with this magnitude of Liberators is going to be difficult at best. Cure now has more money in the bank. And he's held on to his economy for the most part, but the Liberators, caught between a rock and a Liberator pay. The Lurkers, rather. Drop in the main. Parasitic Bomb makes this a one-way trip. Queen will take down the other as well. Be taken down in turn. A single Lurker. Just continually cutting through the economy. Cure. Just bleeding out SCVs. Not that it's a huge deal at the... What? Oh, missile turret. Some zoning missile turrets out of Cure helping with the detection. Absolutely imperative here. Killed his own Hydra. Serral. God, the spirograph of freedom here. The liberation is at hand. And feet, and whatever other weird limbs you want to add to it. Check out more of my Dronely fans. And Serral making 4 Vipers right now. The hatchery softened up by the Vipers. Might be taken out by the Marauders with ease. Still no ghosts. A ghostless composition. More taken down on the left side. Cure keeping the pressure on, though. Just a few shots and the Marauders will plunk down another hatch. There it goes. That's going to be 5 of them so far. And speaking of 5 medevacs and 5 Marauders in production simultaneously. Serral keeping Cure back for now. The Lings and Hydras. And Cure back down to 4 base. Serral has maintained a slight income lead throughout all this. But not so much so that Cure hasn't been able to keep up. Serral has lost 7,000 more resources now, including 3,000 more Vespene gas. But Cure's starting to run thin on minerals himself. The Lurkers somehow slipping their way in to absolutely every outlying base. Hydra's lunging forward to knock out the Liberator that remained. There are a dozen Liberators overhead. Operation Zerg Freedom has begun, whether they like it or not. Gotta be so careful. The parasitic bombs could be absolutely devastating. He throws one out. And, oh, that's so much damage, Cure! takes down the destructible rocks. We'll finish up. Put it out of its misery, please. Thank you. Meanwhile, yep, that's a lurker. The scan hits it. Will he actually kill it in time? Yes. Just a bit. Another hatchery bites the dust. And another one goes. The bio ball keeps rolling through. And Serral playing whack-a-mole right now. But the moles have drugs, guns, and a whole lot of ingrained hatred for the Zerg. Widow mines still scattered throughout. Drilling claws done a while ago. The liberation continues until morale improves. Which, I mean, it's at an all-time low, but it can definitely get worse. The parasitic bomb hitting half a dozen liberators, but the hatchery will be taken down yet again. The lurkers on the opposite side. A Nidus with its creep is blocking the bottom right corner. The bio ball pin cushioned. Some roaches mixed in yet again. Liberators again. The parasitic bomb is doing terrible, terrible damage. The blinding cloud forcing everything forward. But the liberators are covering the retreat. Cure takes out 2 bases, but he's got to be careful that he has any to go back to. The planetary fortress being chipped away by a single lurker. It's a battery pack Hydra Den. Did he build another lair? Did you know lairs have more HP, thus you can consume them? There was a time when Serral was building lairs at all his bases, kind of testing that out, but I don't think it's worth the Vespene gas. The economies are shattered, the supplies are plummeting, and Serral comes out behind. 144 to 154. Cure's ghostless style means dun 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 dun. In the game of drones, you win or you die because you didn't see a missile turret on the high ground. Directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Another lurker. There's always another lurker. The Ballad of Serral continues as the Terran army has chipped its way across the map, continually knocking down bases. Every time Serral has put up a hatchery anywhere past his first 4, Cure has knocked it down within a couple minutes. Serral has struck 35 to 33 workers. He's rebuilt a few drones, but the fact he's having to build drones at this stage of the game is certainly not ideal. The lurkers have paid dividends, but the liberators have somehow increased their share price even more. Unfortunately for Cure, he didn't repair. The Vipers, though, in position, the parasitic bomb softening up more. Serral did build a Spire a while ago, but the Corruptors never made it to the field. The Lurkers, on the other hand, eviscerated half a dozen Marauders right off the bat. Cure losing a big chunk of his army as he tries to drop the main base yet again. More parasitic bombs softening up the Liberators before the fight even starts. He's down into single digits, and more are melting away. There's another lurker, and more lurkers, and the Zerglings take down more SCVs. Cure with barely more than he started with. He's stumbling towards the finish line, but Serral seems to have tripped him up in the process. Huge scan. The blinding cloud is great, but none of the lurkers were able to burrow in time. Caught up against their own hatchery. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. And the bio ball is rolling yet again. He is down to 9 SCVs. There's no home to go back to for Cure. But he's trying to make the same thing happen for Serral. How has it come to this? Neither player able to really take a decisive fight across the board. Almost 100,000 resources removed. The supplies have plummeted to critical levels. The orbital command is burning. Carrick is burning. A single SCV, 1/9 of the economy is called in to repair. Another one on the other side. The mules will drop, but Serral has held on by the skin of his weird Zerg teeth. And I think, therefore I am, and might have enough. He yanks in a couple more Liberators and Cure. He's done so much damage to Serral, but it feels like he divided and conquered himself at the end. One Liberator at a time pulled out. Is that the final? No, he has 3 in total. I think there's some others on the other side. The economy, the lurkers are still slicing through. The Marines and Marauders in autumn colors, the funk of the lunge. GG! Serral holds. But at what cost? The entire game, one misstep away from disaster. And again, he does it. Cure playing it perfectly. On paper, Cure won that game several times over. But in execution, Serral, the right place, the right time, it feels like every time. He lost so many hatcheries. He lost so much economy. But he didn't lose the war. I feel like Cure, about 5-6 minutes before the end, was convinced he could bring it home. But Serral just nickel and diming him across the entire map. There are a lot of moments. It's almost impossible with Serral to point to a particular moment and say, that's where the game turned around. It's like he's steering a cargo ship, where somehow the little tugboat that could is just dragging it slightly, ever so slightly, until it hits the iceberg. And everybody denies something disastrous could happen to a Terran with that economy. But somehow, he's done it. Managed to take out the... So, the reason why you don't just go Corruptors is because Corruptors only have one real purpose, and it is anti-air. Okay? Vipers have every other purpose. Anti-everything. If you can do the anti-air portion with Vipers and still have them potentially for the rest of the game, through all the fire and fury of the battles underground, or on the ground and under it, then it's much better to have the Vipers. Because the Corruptors, so many times, you see it a lot in Zerg versus Protoss, where you're left with like 15 Corruptors in your hand and absolutely nothing else to dress yourself with. Those 15 Corruptors, sure, they can spray all over a command center, but that's just gross in the first part, and also ineffective against someone who can just build Marines. So I think Serral making the active decision to skip the Corruptors unless he desperately needed them. But Cure kept making... And it's an easy... We're spoiled by Cure's teammate, Clem. But Cure, at the second, maybe third best Terran in the world, is much more macro-oriented. Unfortunately, he probably needed to spare a few SCVs for repair. Just... Would a few ghosts have made the difference? Now that's the thing. Ghosts are another thing that's very hard to control on the field. Alongside Liberators and Widowmines, the Terran army is fragile. I don't mean emotionally, though that as well. I feel like there are many points where Serral would have said he was behind in that game. Serral, notoriously and almost painfully humble. What a dick. If you've ever watched his stream, where loses one drone, says, well, that's terrible. I see no way I can win this game. Loses 30 drones. It's over. No way I can win this game. Spends the next 28 minutes winning. Yes, sure, it's a process. Susan, who allowed the Reapers in here? Why do they get to move so quickly while we move so slow? Have you ever heard the story of David and Goliath? How does that apply? I'm not sure. I was just wondering. I've been reading a lot lately. I don't even know how to read. Where is this bit going? That's the point, Susan. I don't know either. Sorry, I must have gotten a punchline in the face. I don't remember. Blacked out for a moment. Jimmy minute that out. Starport's on the way. Cure, once again. Cure's build first. Cure once again leaning on the 3cc. Serral, on the other hand, with a Roach 1 before the 4-minute mark, which is not a guarantee of aggression, but it certainly ups the chances. Definitely thinking of finishes off the SCV. Definitely think he have more potential. He spotted... So Cure spotted the roach one. Serral? Not sure what he's thinking with this drone. Maybe to wall off with Evo chambers? I'm pretty sure that actually blocks the queens, but we will see momentarily. What is he thinking? Is he trying to bait the Hellions in? Like, I'm pretty sure that's a Hellion-tight wall. The world may never know. Huh. And he just... What a save!
What a save!
This is like a 20 or 200 IQ play. I am not 100... I need to see a queen or a Hellion, which are actually the same hitbox size, believe it or not. He's running by. He's going to have some roaches out. I can't tell if Cure couldn't get in or if he just didn't want to test it. But, huh. Well, Cure has a Banshee now, though, which will definitely complicate things in the main base. What? Oh, Serral. Well, oh no, Banshee Cloak's not done. The Sport. Get off my creep or the general vicinity. Yeah, you tell him, Brenda. I don't need a hype queen, okay? You can just let me have this. You got him. I don't... Sorry. Weird game. If Cure had waited a few more seconds for Cloak, but I don't think he was expecting Serral to not have a Spore Crawler. That could have been absolutely devastating, but instead, it was just mildly inconveniencing. Infestation Pit again. This is somehow even quicker than last game. Well, the roaches require a lot less investment to be effective. Okay, I need to know. Notice how the pathing is sending them outside. It's a squeezer right there. There's no way. Like, the roaches are pathing around it. That means it is Hellion tight. He was actually trying to trap him up against it, I think. Meanwhile, the Banshee will be politely yet firmly escorted out by the queens. As again, the build-up continues. The hive, 6.5 minute hive. At least it's starting, okay? It's not the quickest possible. Wow, this seems like overkill here. At least the Changeling. I wonder what... Well, that narrows it down, doesn't it? Changelings can't take stim packs, which... Eternal yet short regret. Baneling speed on the way. Again, Serral, this time using the roaches as the bulwark, as opposed to just the straight up... Well, we had plenty of roaches and Ravagers last game. They just didn't feature as dramatically. I'm still remembering the roaches, the Ravagers, and the Nidus. Who does that? Pops them out, knocks down the Liberators. Of course, Serral does that. Yeah, okay. The Overlord spots the double drop in the main, just in time for the roaches to get into position. 1-1's done. Cure may try to take a trade. Or he may not. All right, both options are on the table. Now he's just going to bully the Overlord because he can't fight back. Typical. Serral actually a little supply blocked off them, but still a couple more on the way. The hive is completed. Serral just now getting Zergling speed. Did he queue up Adrenal Glands behind? Not yet. But 3 Vipers in production as Serral with 84 drones. He's got 4 bases. He's going to have that 200 supply of Ravager, Ling, Bane. And he's going to come rolling across the map. Yeah, Adrenal Gland's already queued up. Will Cure have an answer? Or will he just simply get rolled yet again? Remains to be determined. Those Vipers going to be slurping out the energy. Hydralisk Den's on the way. We know the script by now. It's about the acting that's important. Like Batman movies. Nope, that's it. That's all I got. And we all know that Christopher Nolan's were the best, okay? Not just because I'm a mid-tier millennial, but because they... It's simple. Moving on. If there's not enough to argue about in the comments, you guys can pick that one up. Like and subscribe. I was born in the algorithm, molded by it. something Banes. Banshee knocked down by the Ravagers, but the Zerglings driven back by the main Terran army. The upgrades are actually in favor of Serral with +2 Carapace down, but the siege tanks on the high ground. A beautiful spread. Can't believe it's not butter, but the Vipers are already completed. 3 out of 4 tanks removed from the fight before it really starts. Can maybe yank in the other, doesn't really need to. Easily rips apart this push. The Medivacs and the Marines forced to retreat. There's just... Well, Kier's a bit of a macro player himself, though. Again, despite the losses on the field, Kier still similar on army supply. He's going to have 2-2 done. He has 8 racks production. The Octo racks can pump out a whole lot of Marines and Marauders. Proving that now. Again, the Zerglings. What a beautiful split by Serral there. Wow. Just, I didn't even think he was paying attention to that side, but, you know, I shouldn't be so disrespectful. Changeling is what's on the minimap. The Banelings rolling through. The Mules just dropped and their short lives made much shorter. The Planetary Fortress annihilated by the Banes. The Viper's Binding Cloud knocks out and Parasitic Bomb. The rest of the bio is forced back, but on the other side, we have another drop of the Zerglings into the natural. Splits off against the Widowmine. Gonna kill off a few more SCVs, but Kier knocked down to 3 bases. Still more bio over to the left flank, even more to the right. Serral getting stretched a little thinly now, and doesn't have any larva. He has plenty of money in the bank, but he can't spend it. The Lings and Banes just aren't enough. The Blinding Cloud, a temporary solution to what could be a very permanent problem. A Spore on the perimeter may knock down a half-full medevac. Dramatic loss, but Kier making a lot of progress with the most mobile of unit compositions. And Serral suffering from a lack of injects. Maybe not a lack of injects, but just the fact that he can't keep up. He's building queens because what else is he going to spend his money on? Hydras on the way. He doesn't have a lurker den. Really, there's nothing to spend a relatively minimal amount of larva efficiently. So Kier may make even more progress as the inevitable march of it across the map continues. And Serral gonna get knocked back down the 3 bases. Kier again, Parasitic Bomb in the main, but more drones are gonna fall. The Hive itself is under fire. The Bio Army is crushing forward and tearing through. +3 Carapace is done for Serral, but he simply cannot put enough units on the field to deal with this. He loses the Hive. It's a disaster for the finisher. As his game right now looking near finished itself. Down goes the Baneling nest as well. His tech being chopped off branch by branch as Kier's momentum continues forward. 63 drones remain, 3 bases. Kier, if he had a 4th base right now, this game would be all but over. But since your mother isn't singing yet, Serral still has a chance. The gas, not exactly efficient, but, you know, contractors, right? Lurker Den is finally on the way. Serral needs something to, 1, hold his bases together, and 2, to deal with the Bio Army and keep the pressure on his side of the map. He has been unable to really contest the mobility of the Medivacs and the Marines Marauders within. The Zergling, this is maybe he'll realize his long distance. It doesn't matter, he doesn't need gas. He's got 1,600. He's not going to corner the market. What? A game out of Kier yet again. He just has to lay down the hammer. He has to finish it. He has to beat the army one time. And without ghosts, that's quite a difficult proposition. Serral has a tendency to slither away just in time. Without the ghost to potentially remove the spellcasters, he's still reliant on attrition, which has been working out well enough for him thus far as he takes the income lead really meaningfully for the first time probably in the game. But in 3-3's finishing, Kier is maxed out. A burrowed Zergling, though, as Serral knows the map is dark and full of Terrans. Burrowed Zerglings, way more valuable than burrowed Banes, as knowledge is power. Guards it wisely. Fleet Beacon. Nope. Fusion Core. Same vibes. Is on the way on the other side. that late game starport tech. It is definitely an active choice by Cure to shy away from the ghosts. I think he's feeling that the longer the game drags on, the more Serral is able to get... Serral, why are you killing your own Ravagers? You're not maxed out. Is it messing up his hotkeys or something? Why would you do that? What? I know. Traitors in our midst. I still don't... That was actually... Maybe. Hydras and Lings fighting, but the rest of the Bio Army on the right flank. Cure still brawling with the Hydralisk, but he doesn't quite have enough to deal with it here. And the army's holding position. Another hive. The second of the game is on the way, this time at the natural. The game will slow down as Serral has managed to claw his way back to 200 supply. Or nearly. Still not sure what's happening with the Ravagers. Wombo combo. Parasitic bomb on 2 of the medevacs. He's just gonna let him go. Hold position. No, 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 don't bring it home. The medevac suffering for it. And Cure on the precipice of victory. Has to be careful not to do a 180, turn around and fall into the abyss himself. High-sec auto-tracking on the way. If he doesn't start a Ghost Academy, that's gross negligence at this point. He's got high-sec auto-tracking, he's got building armor, he's got all those late-game Bronze League hero upgrades. But he's up against Lurkers, Vipers, and Infestors. He needs the Ghosts. Liberators are great. They're good. They're incredible. But on their own, we already saw what Serral could do against him. He needs something more. I mean, does he? The Bio Army has still proven itself. Another Infestor taken down, another hatchery bopped by the Bio. Caduceus reactors on the way. Advanced ballistics for the Liberators already completed. As Cure rolling like a tide into Serral's base. Parasitic bomb helpful. Fungal comes through. The army thinning out quickly, but the Liberators are enough. There's almost nothing surviving underneath. The Queens.
If you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. Oh, it's just Karen. Don't worry about it. The Hatchery Owner Association's meetings will be much quieter now. That's what you said the last 6 times. It's not true. Do you remember the last 6 times? You're gonna have a talking to about that one. Back to the spawning pool. Oh, don't tempt me with a good time, Susan.
Sorry, I lagged out for 6 Liberators. Cure is leaning everything on them, just completely, conscientiously objecting to the idea of the ghosts. And I don't think it's out of the goodness of his heart, but instead out of necessity. He knows he's not a micro... Oh no, the blinding cloud's forcing him into the lurker line. The Widowmine splashing across the army. Eventually, Serral will get sliced apart, but he's doing the damage in turn. He did not expect the Nidus to come through. Are there any lurkers left? Only a couple. And that, okay. That overwhelming, disproportionate response just as Serral loaded into the Nidus. But Cure was pulled all the way back to the main. And there's very little to defend against the Hydras at the front. What a brawl. Yet again. Cure gonna try to take the mineral-only base down the center. 10 mineral patches there. The lurkers can be hit by a Widowmine on the way. But Serral, does he not have drilling cause? He does not. Quite an oversight. Serral faster sneaking by. There's another Infestor underneath blocking the base. And the Nidus in the main yet again. Serral sneaking those lurkers by. Honestly, Cure may not have realized how much of an advantage he had for a few minutes there. Serral, a most dangerous when cornered and able to focus on even less bases. His defense has been, at least of his core bases, nearly impenetrable. But the Liberators getting too far forward. The parasitic bomb, the Hydra's lunge underneath. And again, the Liberators are swept out of the sky. Even then, though, Cure, well, without the scans for detection, another Nidus over to the left flank. The Lurkers are slicing through. And Cure, he wandered a little too far forward, probably had the Liberators queued up. And the army supply tumbles. He still has the bases, but the Nidus are not being answered here. He has multiple Nidus. The one in the main, most importantly, will be taken out. The army just moves forward, seeing there's no response. And Serral will be diving in. The planetary fortress under fire. There's another one down the center, so Kira still has a solid economy. But those Vipers just pulling all the Liberators out of the fray. Parasitic Bomb helping out. Reinforces the Lurkers with the Nidus network. And Cure, there's just so much going on. We're going to the Cure cam. As he's desperately trying to set up, queuing up some of the Liberators on the other side. Finally, we'll be able to knock out one. But knocks out another. The army coming down the center. He spots it with the sensor tower, but without enough time to deal with it. The planetary fortress being ripped apart. So the floor is Lurkers. Step wisely. That Liberator queued up, but Serral, Cure actually repositions in time. Meanwhile, though, Serral with a fungal from the back. Another one. Throws the parasitic bomb. Knocks out some of the medevacs. And I can't help but think it's sliding away yet again. Cure does not have any money in the bank. Serral has the income lead. The army supply now in his favor. The lack of ghosts is glaring. I think it's too late for them to save him at this stage. He needs another one of those fights. But now that Serral has the Lurker count and he's restabilized his economy, it's not getting any easier. Nidus in the main. Looks like Cure going almost into a base trade. Once he gives up the production, he's on a timer. There's 4 orbital commands. The Nidus in the main, the Lurkers in the production. Cure's supply blocked. He lost too many depots and command centers. And now, the bureaucratic red tape is too much for him to handle. The Liberator's coming to defend the main, but he's going to knock out some more. There's no way for Serral to know he's supply blocked right now. But he knows the army is pales in comparison. The fungal catches another wave. Cure in the red, but Serral helping him out with that. The Nidus is screaming yet again. Get over here! 1, 2, and 3 Liberators knocked down. As bit by bit and bite by bite, Cure is ripped apart. The chainsaw surgeon of Serral. Just amputating limb after limb and slicing through Marine after Marauder. Yanking the medevacs into the Hydralis, knocking the Liberators down with parasitic bombs and Hydras. The Marines and Marauders on the run, but there's nowhere left to run to. Serral has turned the tide yet again. G. Serral, 500 Zerglings. Losing the Hive. It looked like there was a tipping point. But Serral, he flipped it yet again. Cure is clearly trying to end the game before we get to that maxed out ghost kind of turtle composition. You know, I don't blame him for not wanting to play the 26-minute turtle game against Serral, because when you eventually lose from him prying apart your armor piece by piece, it's way more demoralizing. But the advantage being squandered, if it was ever there at all, and Serral making this look more one-sided than a Mobius strip as we go into game number 3, the last vestige of Protoss here on Pylon. Of course we got rid. Well, Serral doing the 15 Overlord little extractor trick with the change of hatcheries to 275 minerals and queens at 175, queenflation hits hard, all right?
We're worth it! I don't...
But with the change, it seems... I don't know the math, but if Serral's doing it, I'm going to trust that Serral's done the math. And making the extractor trick worth it to get a little bit quicker hatch with a few more drones, or a couple more drones, even at a slight loss of the resources early. Well, when you cancel a building, you only lose 1/4 of the resources. So make an extractor trick to get that extra bit of supply. Sometimes worth it. Cure... He plays such a straightforward... Both these players, in my humble, modest, and unknowledgeable opinion. Many people say I'm humble and modest. Arguably the most humble and modest caster out there. Many very smart people in the comments. That's how you know they're smart. They like and subscribe. They say, Winter, you're just so incredibly modest, and you don't even mention it. I'm just quoting. So, breathtaking. Handsome. But I digress. But I may have lost my original point in there somewhere, but I think we got the important one out. The two best players to learn from in the game, for Terran and Zerg respectively. Cure, with a Terran style that, while ghosts are well known to be an incredible late game unit, they're also very expensive and hard to use effectively. But there's an unrealistic standard set by Clem in how you use ghosts, if we get to that stage. But the Marines, Marauders, and Medevacs, even against Serral, clearly proving themselves. And I bet you Cure, against everyone on the Korean ladder, which I doubt Serral is a frequenter of, has overwhelming success. Cure has always been, both by me and I'll say by everyone, one of the most underrated players, because he doesn't have those highlight clip micro moments, really. He just puts so many units on the field. Quantity has a quality all its own. And no matter how many times it seems like he's lost too many units, he somehow still has either even or a head supply, because he's so focused on nailing those production timings, being efficient with his units. It's not about targeting down half a dozen banelings, doing some fancy like anti-lurker, ring around the rosy micro. But it's failing in the face of Serral, like so many before him. Simply, Serral is the Medusa of StarCraft 2, where if you look too closely at him, it seems like so many players turn to stone and can't quite close it out. Is Kerrigan based on moving? Now, yeah, that reminds me of like the expansion after Wings of Liberty, with its story and all that. A lot of people kind of lost interest by the end of it, but then Heart of the Swarm rolls around with its new Zerg storyline, and it made me Kerrigan. Banshee's on the way. Cure not shying away from him anymore. Maybe if Cloak... There's so many things. Like, a minute late and a mineral short. If the Cloak had been done just in time...
It's Cloak! Always Cloak.
Except when it's not. Sorry. The Banshees. On the way. Mech! Is this gonna be Battle Mech? I like it. Alright, let's try it. Let's give it a shot. We gotta change the equation here, because right now it doesn't look like Cure has Serral solved at all. The Mass Cyclone Hellion Mech Mass Armory. Double Armory to start things off. The Gumiho Special. Especially nowadays, where the Cyclone is actually bugged out to be slightly better than it should be. Yes, I know, right? Like, where it has the lock-on cooldown reduced because the intern has yet to change the right number. But I digress. Speaking of numbers, like and subscribe. But it is now the most brittle part, the most important part of mech is getting the production up. That is why it is so often a liability. Because by the time, even if they don't do an all-in, even if they don't do a crazy timing, by the time you get 5 factories, McDonald's all opened up over here, you got a +1-1 on the way, you spent all this gas getting all your infrastructure online, well, the Zerg has 69 or more drones. A very nice baseline economy, and even more bases on the way. Serral? Oh, he has a changeling. He has a changeling, and he sees the siege tank and more heli. He sees the gases here. Even if he doesn't know, and it's not hell clones, it's just siege tank mech. Could we see swarm hosts? Sir Richard and his band of swarm host brethren? It's gonna be something different. But Kira going with the classical. Transfuse comes through. The classical mech style, the heavy metal mech. With siege tanks and Hellions, and Cure, or Serral just letting him go about his business. So we just finished the infestation, but the hive has begun. I think the latest one so far, but still incredibly early, because Vipers are possibly the most important unit that Zerg has in every single game. Hive on the way. Still another no rush 8 minutes. These players both so macro oriented. A lot of macro-roni, not very much cheese. Smart servos for quick transform on Hellions and Vikings and technically Thors. 3 more factories on the way. Blue Flame for the extra damage against light. Meanwhile, Serral filled in all the ground-based upgrade. We've got Baneling speed. We've got Roach speed. Creep itself is effectively a speed upgrade, especially for the Queen. Just getting up close and personal as quickly as possible is what Zerg is all about. But still, the Hellions patrolling around. Changelings coming in. Vipers are already in production. And if Cure skips the Ghost yet again, well, we're still a long way off that being too relevant. There's already a Spire in production. As Serral clearly inspired, that's for Broodlords. That is the most Broodlord Spire I've ever seen. There's no way he's like, oh, he's gonna go massive. This, somewhat ironically, the mech army is when we don't see the Liberators. Because he's just full ground mech. The ground pounders here. Because flesh is weak and malleable.
Yeah. Build a wall and keep the Zerg, Grandpa. Mech Terran great.
Grandpa, get off Facebook. Get out of the YouTube comments.
The Zergs ruined StarCraft. Grandpa. Mules are taking our jobs.
Okay, that one's maybe true. Okay.
So you agree?
Neural Parasite. As, if worst comes to worst, if you can't beat him, hire him. Infestors with a different purpose against mech. The Greater Spire is on the way. Serral opting for the Lords of the Brood against a mech army that has almost no answer to it. The Mass Overlord dropping. Is he gonna drop on top? There's only a few Vikings here. The Zergling counter. That's already a planetary. But a drop actually on top of the army. He doesn't quite have... I think he canceled the Overlord drop? No, maybe? The Zerglings incinerated. Here comes 10 minutes, no rush, effectively. But here we are, 200 supply on both sides. Almost a unit tester level battle. That siege tank spread goes deep. The Zerglings desperately trying to counterattack might actually find some success. The Queen's called in. One immolated right off the bat. Siege tank's doing so much damage. Serral, does he have any infestors? No, Neural Parasite is done. Raider Spire's on the way, but that's not going to be that relevant. Queen's still taking quite a pounding. But the Viper's swinging in from the north side. Vikings trying to help out against it, but that's so many siege tanks. And, well, Serral finding some success gets... the Zerglings killed 21 SCVs. So even though he was unable to break the army, the counterattack damage was pretty devastating. Losing 21 SCVs, and almost, obviously it was a forced error, but seems like an undue amount of damage. That's another big weakness of mech, is you can't just jam half a dozen Marines in a siege tank at a position and have it held down, as you're not building Marines. And Hellions have a little bit less utility. The siege tanks continue marching forward. The Broodlord still a distant dream, as not even a single Corruptor has been produced. The tanks continuing. The engineering bay, quite a chew toy here. The reinforcements dealing with all of this. The hatchery is under fire yet again. Serral backed up against it. Where are the Vipers? When the Queens were obliterated, the Vipers were barely enough. But when the hatchery falls, where are the Vipers? A single one. When the Ravagers annihilated, where are the Vipers? More roaches in production, but where are the Vipers? The transfuse is coming together. The Zerglings, a single roach and a Zergling nibbling on the door. Spore Crawler out in front. There's 10 Vikings now, slowly but surely building up to help zone out said Vipers. The siege tanks in a precarious position. Somehow this hatchery holding on, but not for much longer. Here come the Queens. Where is that Viper? Still trying to move forward. The Corrosive Bow gets another double kill. But Cure. Well, the march forward. The counterattack attempted. 5 siege tanks at a time. 3-3, but Serral under so much pressure right now. Keeping it together. The hatchery finally falters, and seconds before 3-3 is done, Serral with the Vipers from the back! Where did they come from? Where did they go? You've saved the day now, Viper-Eyed Joe! The Vipers slipped around, and at the 11th hour on the 3rd day from the east, the Vipers, with their blinding clouds, will help clear the tank line. The Vikings kind of scrambled to take them out, but the Vipers managed to survive, and even one of them gets away with it. And again, Serral has turned the tide. He has the bases to the south. What a play! Move over, Shakespeare. Serral's making the plays now. I was searching. We have the observer cam. You're part of this. And I didn't know. I just assumed they were going to try to sneak in from the front. So did Cure. But Serral knew. He waited. He sacrificed the hatchery. He fell back to the keep. But the Vipers. And just like that, the tank line was broken. Wow. He's done it again. The Mass Ravager, making up for the Ravagers that he actually killed off in the previous match. There's still that Greater Spire waiting for its opportunity, but now that the siege tank count has been reset, it's no longer an obligation, and it could definitely be a liability. Thing is, Kier still has the economy. Single Ravager for Rest. Has some potential. The Vipers with plenty of energy. The tanks sieging up at point-blank range. He has to make a decision, but this time the Vikings will knock them down. This siege tank push looking absolutely devastating. A small drop into the main. The siege tank's already in position, just gonna give up on the drop. Down goes the hatch. Cure still with a very strong mech army moving forward. Double kill on the Liberators. Always finding these opportunities where the geometry aligns. He's acutely aware of it. The Zerglings on top of the tanks. They're firing on one another. Tanks very effective against other tanks. Corruptors on the way. He wiped out the Vikings. He knocked out the majority of the Liberators. There are no Thors. The Broodlord switch is finally on the way. The drop in the main and Serral again. The blinding clouds to cut off the front line. The Ravagers to melt through it. 5 Broodlords on the way surround the tanks inside their own home. Nowhere is safe from Serral's grasp. Cure. Well, 14 drones died. Serral's still maxed out, as is Cure. 68 workers apiece. Another base to the left side will be hit by the siege tanks and Hellbats. The Ravagers again! Gonna knock down Vikings and Liberators alike. And every Viking taken down premature. The Broodlords! The hatchery falls, but the tanks will be driven away yet again. Thors in production. But Cure has completely exhausted his bank. And Serral has not yet revealed the neural parasite. I believe that's the finishing move, if you would. As soon as he spots the Thors, we see 5-6 infestors in production. And he borrows the Thors and turns them into a victory. We're still a long way off. Serral has 165 to just 165 supply. He's actually supply blocked. And now Cure is he still has orbital commands. He still has mules in production. He has that Nordic late game option, which Serral should be well aware of. The Thors and the Vikings. Both players kind of pushed backwards. The economies brought low. Neither able to hold on to the front base. Cure again. Struggling to pin down Serral. But again, he has the army on the field. Serral has to squirm his way out of it. Blinding Cloud and Abduct are existential threats to this army, but that's enough Thors. They have 3/3 upgrades. The Broodlords, even with maxed upgrades, which they don't have, pale in comparison. You need like 2 Broods to 1 Thor, let alone the Vikings. Parasitic Bomb. Quarantines 1, but another couple taken down by the Queens with great prejudice. The Zerglings, though, another attack on the mineral line. 21 more SCVs slaughtered. Broodlords moving forward, drawing the siege tank fire onto the Thors. And the Broodlings at their feet will draw the tank fire in from all angles and bring another one down. Another parasitic bomb on the Vikings. Serral, not too much further ahead in supply, but the Broodlords are gaining some ground. Another hatchery will fall. That's 5 this game. Yet again, Cure knocking on the door of victory, and Serral refusing to let him pass through it. The Broodlords. The Thors, the lumbering units. things slow down as both sides, they can't support this level of production. The incomes might be equal, but the total income has been reduced dramatically. Serral nickel and diming tanks back and forth with the Ravagers. Single. This is quite a story. A single Hellbat, a single siege tank, abandoned in the midfield. The Broodlord count has slowly but surely climbed upwards. The Thors, 6 and 5 Vikings. The 7 Infestors are on the way. That is finally the finishing move. That siege tank, still not prepared for it. Oh, the Infestor obliterated before it could burrow. Parasitic Bomb drawn off to the left side. The Broodlord's careful not to get into range. How did the Zergling get into the main? A single heroic Zergling. The Infestors don't quite have the energy yet. Throws out the fungal. Blinding Cloud. They can't see. They can't shoot. And they'll be raining down Broodlings on top. The siege tanks doing terrible, terrible damage to the Thors themselves. And the Broodlords will maintain superiority in the skies, and Serral will be able to clean up the siege tanks on the ground. And just like that, Cure's supply plummets by 60, 70 below Serral, who's still at 190. 5 more Broodlords on the way as he cleared the Vikings from the field and has nothing left to really contest. Enough Corruptors to knock down the trickle of production that's left over. Serral. The Broodlord timing. Enough. Cure still mining. But he's running out of mineral patches. We're moving into the bean counter phase. I'm not sure if he lost the main base or he floated it over. But he's down to 3 orbital commands, which against someone who has burrowed infestors threatening another wave. Blinding Cloud. Just not enough. The Infestors, the hero tank, taking out 3 Infestors. It's life worth living. Taken out. Oh, and another Infestor is charbroiled by 3 ambitious Hellbats. Cure down 100 supply. But at this point, fighting for everything. He still has 3-3 mech, and he can't know that Serral is still maxed out. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised he is, considering how much he's lost across the field. Serral, again, has managed to be more cost-effective than a mech Terran. Which feels like insider trading somehow. I don't... Absolutely obscene. But again, Cure without the ghosts will be left having nightmares. The Broodlords queued forward. Again, trying to get into range, but the Vikings gonna knock down some. The multiple spellcasters. The Hellbats incinerating Zerglings. It's not like Serral has a lot in the bank, but Cure has nothing. He's got a few mules. The Ravager! The spiritual incarnation of the harass Ravager from earlier. The Vikings moving forward. Parasitic Bomb. Fungal. The Broodlord's taking a lot of damage, but these units cannot be replaced from Cure. He has nothing in the bank. The Thors managed to punch their way through, but the Corruptors knocked down the Vikings. Serral is keeping his units back so far that I don't think Cure realizes the desperate situation he currently finds himself in. Zerglings sneaking by. Cure with a campaign level army left over. Alright, you must somehow solve this mission on brutal nightmare mode. with just the units you have. This is a no-build mission. It didn't start that way, but here we are. There's 2 orbitals left. One of them is in the air, and the other one, he uses a scan to clear up. The Brood Lords will cut off the reinforcements. It's all over but the G's. Neural Parasite could be used. Grabs a Thor. JJ Serral drives his way forward and claims match point. Again, for several minutes, it looked like Cure may have had the solution. But Serral, again, rips it from his grasp forcibly and maintains his dominance over the Terrans. 60 siege tanks, 600 Zerglings. Cure's momentum-based play, getting him to the goal line. But Serral forcing the turnover every time. And thus ends my sports knowledge and metaphor. Like and subscribe if you also sports. Digital sports. All right, pick your team. I hope it's the red one. In the top right of Ultra Love. The greatest of all time. The finisher. It's Serral. And winning the exact same amount of games that I think I would against Serral in this series. The People's Terran. We have Cure. I can't stress how close Cure is coming. Like, he clearly knows what he wants, and he knows how to get it. It's just Serral is, at every turn, just slightly faster and more effective than anyone else, with the most unwieldy unit compositions in the game. And I do not think it's necessarily clickbait. I mean, it is, but it's accurate when we say Serral's gonna get Zerg nerfed again, because Cure has gone this entire series without building a ghost, for better or worse. I think Cure's convinced he would have been worse off with them, as going into ghost for the sake of it is not the be-all end-all, especially against Serral, who knows how to adjust, and has clearly been focusing on the mass unit composition right up until Cure's so committed to his late-game army, he can't shift into another one easily. Like, he keeps going for Ravagers, Lingsbanes, and Vipers. And the Vipers are the most expensive unit by far. It's only when we kind of get entrenched and the main bases are mining out that he actually focuses on an end game. He's waiting for the kill move, and he's patient. All right, he's so patient. Painfully so. All right, we're getting, it's excruciating at points, but I'm not convinced Serral doesn't know when the tide will turn, but he knows what to look for, and he creates those opportunities. And it's the Vipers. No one's quite as good with the Vipers. They're such an expensive unit. 200 gas a pop. You could pay for a full upgrade with a single Viper. So, and controlling them is quite unwieldy. As they don't have an auto attack, a water balloon. They don't have any damage directly against most of the ground units that shoot against them. So, but Serral makes it look, I'm not going to say easy, but I'll say plausible. In that last game, somehow turning it around yet again, where it looked like he was besieged in such a way that it was almost impossible to break out. He managed to completely somehow outflank with Vipers, which sounds like something that the YouTube comments would say, why doesn't he just use the Vipers and sneak up on him so he gets the blinding cut? It's like, okay, yeah, you just gotta sneak up on one of the best, like the second or third best Terra player in the world. Okay, YouTube commenter, what a genius over here. And then Serral does. All right. Hey, the next thing you know, somebody's going to build a Raven for the Terran. Okay, let's not go too far. How about a Nidus for mining, which those 25,000 APM AIs use, because technically you can teleport through a nidus quicker than you can return minerals normally, which, well, technically you can teleport with bunkers. Fun fact. I have a short on that. The practical usage of that is almost entirely 0, but you can teleport across the entire map with bunkers as long as you have an unbroken chain of them. The poor/mineral-only Nidus network, I guess. Wow, double engineering base start for Cure. As he once again leans into the mass bio. And this time around, so incredibly greedy about it. He's not even getting cloak. This is straight to mass marine. He's shifting again. A much more bio-curious build, if you would. But no mech. Instead, just marines. Maybe marauders, but really just marines to start.
Oh, don't be so dramatic.
Overlord will spot, like, he saw the 2 additional barracks. At this point, Serral knows. Cure knows that Serral knows. And Serral knows that Cure knows that Serral knows. But that doesn't mean we're going to be changing the trajectory anytime soon. This whole series has been a lot of, I know what you're doing, now come and get me. Both sides. It has been a straight-up macro brawl where they just start wailing on each other for pretty much the entire game. A triple Brenda.
You were flying for a second, Brenda. You know that's not what it's like. Don't let your rose-colored glasses. Yes, we both know you need glasses. You're getting old. You're also getting old. We're identical twins. You were born several seconds earlier, so you're older than me. Well, that means I have seniority to tell you to go. Don't get us demonetized again, Susan. All right? Just because everybody likes PC culture now doesn't mean you have to be.
Sorry. I am. Wow, that's a quick infestation pit. I feel like I've said that 4 games in a row, and it's been true 4 games in a row. I'm not going to apologize for telling the truth. It's about the phrasing and the inflection that's important, but the inflection point of the game itself, not to be an asymptote about it, but Hive at 6.5 minutes. Absolutely redundant. I think that is faster than game 1. Close, but again, Serral. Just sitting back here, gonna build up. Serral's got that top left corner. Hive's on the way. Cure, absolutely no intent. This is a full-on Octo-Rex timing. 8 barracks. 1 factory. I won't be surprised to see a second soon enough. And a starport, of course. He's going to have 2-2 upgrades like a full minute quicker than Serral. Cure is banking on hitting this timing so hard that Serral will never have enough, really, army supply to recover. We've seen it before, I'm sure. Well, assuming it goes well, we'll see it again. Queens will escort the medevacs again. God, the map control. The creep spread is already... And Serral has not... Unlike Scarlet or Raynor, Serral does not have that much, like, crazy creep spread. But he has it where he needs it. He gets the job done with it. And it certainly feels like he prioritizes it when he needs it, but he's not going overboard. He doesn't have that much APM. 430 is still very high, of course. But compared to, like, Raynor and Clem, which... not coincidentally are the 2 players that give him the most trouble, it is relatively low. Both those players average 500 to 600, and you can feel it. Serral said so himself. But a massive counter, you can't leave the door open! Oh no, this isn't Grandma's house. Unless your grandmother looks very different than I would think here. But, oh no, the Zergling counterattack yet again, undercutting every bit of the efforts on the other side of the map. And this is not costing Serral very much of anything. A few dozen Zerglings trapped in. He doesn't have burrows, so they won't be getting out, but Kjur spent all the time dealing with this. Another counterattack is rolling in, compounding the issue. Serral may lose a hatchery, but he's already done so much damage. One to the economy, and cut off the reinforcements as well, which will make it that much easier to deal with this. And the Vipers are out. Blinding Cloud hits both tanks. There's another one on the back line. Throws out the Blinding Cloud, wipes out the tanks. It actually keeps the hatchery alive for just a little while longer. He's kept it together. A couple transfuses might save the day, but on the field, yanks in yet another siege tank. The Ravager's helping out. And Serral is actually starting to clear the field. He's got Adrenal Glands. Corrosive Biles actually knocked down a medevac. And Kjur is coming up short. It's not getting any easier as time goes on. His only time, well, his timing was 2-2. I'm scouring. But this time, the game definitely looking more one-sided than a Mobius Strip. There isn't the advantage that Kjur has turned the series upon before. Or at least the matches. And gotten so close to victory. No, this time Serral has undercut. He's going to target fire the hatch, and he's not going to get it. It's a disaster. I wonder if Serral's, well, he now has 81 drones, and an ultraless cavern is on the way. This time around, he's feeling so confident. The Ultra's a tempo advantage unit. Tempo advantage is when you have so much economy and so much supply, you just want to batter down the door. Serral has not been in that position at any point in this series until now. But he's adapted, and it seems like he may overcome. Ravagers, Lings, Banes. The Banelings manually controlled, rolling through to hit the Marines around the back, despite the Marauders splitting off. And with chitinous plating in production, the Ultraless. Well, Serral has... he's suffering from success. He's at 198 supply, making it very difficult to add any more. Aspire is on the way. But again, all the fire and fury has been mostly on Kjur's side of things. The fact that Serral is near even on units lost / resources lost is clearly an indicator of how poorly this has gone so far. And I don't think he deserves the benefit of the doubt at this point. If he couldn't close it out from a step or two ahead, it's hard to see him closing it on even footing. +3 infantry weapons and armor. He will have more army supply, and he will have better upgrades for at least 20-30 seconds here, though Serral has caught up very quickly. Clearly there were some gaps. But the surround is set, and here comes Serral. The siege tanks well spread. The Marauders on the bridge. Blinding Clouds will help them break forward. And the Banelings are rolling through, but they're not enough. The Banes will break before the Bio does. And crossing the bridge, the Marines and Marauders moving forward. That hatchery, his red whale, may finally be taken down, but no, it lives. A little while longer. The Whittle Mine dragged in. The Corrosive Bile thrown out. And finally, the hatchery dies. But another wave of Banelings has been queued up. The Marauders continue punching forward. The Vipers in position. 4 Ultras on the way, looking to clean up whatever's left. The Ultras popping out mid-fight. Zerglings and Banelings. Blinding Cloud on the tanks. Cure in full retreat, routed from the fight entirely. The Medivac's almost out of energy as well, if there's anything left to heal when this is all said and done. Plenty of Marauders, but a very awkward angle to try to use them against the Ultras. The Ultras just crushing. Still struggling. 4 Infestors on the way, just in case Cure decides to slip further. But Serral rebuilds the base. He still has 7 hatcheries up against a Cure who just landed his 4th. The Ultras. I don't even know if they got an attack off yet, but the elephant's in the room. Liberators and Marauders are a great choice. But look at the supply. Serral's getting everything else. He's getting flyer attack. He's getting ranged attack. He's got neural parasite in production. He doesn't have a ton in the bank, but he still has 82 drones. This base, I wonder if he's intentionally not going for a planetary because he knows the hammer's about to drop. And now he's happy that he doesn't have a base that can just be bowled over. A single Liberator making things difficult to the north. The Ultras chewing through to the south. Infestors coming up, looking to hold him down, and Knockabout throws out one of the Fungals. Another couple Infestors. Parasitic Bomb on most of the Medivacs. Quarantines 1. Army getting chased down. Bioball still very strong, but the Fungals can break it up easily. More Marauders around the corner. Might be able to take down yet another Ultra. But the Zerg are continuing forward. The Infestors are closing in. He's driven back to the high ground. And I think Serral has a great estimate of his power. No drilling claws. The surviving Widowmines will be taken out. Cure. The Infestor's leading the charge. Throws out a Fungal. The Ultras come in and absolutely chewing through everything. The corrosive bios take out one of the Ultralists. But Serral, 4 games in a row, with each one seemingly more decisive than the last. Serral cleaves his way through one of the best Terrans in the entire world. And he makes it look relatively easy. He's so... Why are you like this, sir? Absolutely incredible to watch. But the Zerg within me, and I'm at least 1/3 Zerg myself. You could argue maybe more, but... Serral, please give him what... The ghosts cried out, but were never given the opportunity to be silenced. Not a single one built throughout 4 games of this series. Would it have made the difference? It's unclear, and we may never know. But Serral with a decisive and comprehensive victory over both the macro bio and the full-on mech plays. Cure unable to find an answer to the greatest of all time. Well, hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did. Hopefully it made your day at least a little bit better. And it'd be awesome if you got the means and motivation to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. So thank you to our meal tier patrons bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jiggy, Devin, Door, Kate, Mario, Suit, and everyone. Glad you still enjoy. Hope to see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill. I know Zerg is already screwed. This is not going to make it any...